Okay, well, thank you to Casey for leading us through and the band. That was wonderful. I'm in a really privileged position today, I think. Usually when you go on a holiday overseas somewhere, you get to come back and all of your family will say, oh, you've got to put a presentation together, come around, we'll have dinner, and you get to share some photos. The problem with that is there's usually around 1,000 photos or so to go through, and after about 8 minutes, everyone's on their phone, checking the football, checking the cricket score, and the person that's put the presentation together, who's really excited about what they've been able to do and what they've seen, all of a sudden they're feeling a little bit jaded because no one cares quite as much as what they do. So I've got most of my family here today, so I'm going to get the Bangladesh presentation out of the way, hopefully fairly quickly. Thank you, darling. Hold on. No, hold on to everybody else while I drink. Sorry, thank you. It's hard singing and then just jumping up straight away and preaching. So I'm going to get the family side out of the way, and also this means that we know it's not going to go on for 4 hours today. I'm going to keep it to the sort of the 1 hour mark worth of just endless photos of, it's an hour of power. So I've got a time limit today. Sorry? Yeah. We have been supporting the work of Bangladesh as a church for quite some time. And if you might be a little bit like me, I've been probably fractionally guilty, just block your ears here for a second, JB, of hearing that we've been doing things. I know that JB has been going away for many, many years to Bangladesh. I know Alvin, I've heard Ashish, but I haven't really had a great sense of the significance of the ministry and what occurs, or even maybe, if I was being perfectly honest, the buy-in that I might have otherwise if I really understood what was going on. And so today I hope I'm able, with a fresh voice, not that you need it, we should be able to listen to JB and hear everything with just as much passion as from me, but hopefully able to understand a little bit more of what happens in Bangladesh, the urgency of the mission, the urgency of the call, and what God is doing as well, because it is incredible. But I'll start with this. I had a frustration before the trip had even got underway. I got sat down by JB, and he said, Derek, when we go to Bangladesh, we travel light, we travel fast. We want to have just a carry-on luggage only, no big suitcases, because what happens in Bangladesh airport is suitcases, they can get lost, firstly, or it can take hours for them to come off the plane. We've been stuck here in Dhaka before. So I rock up with my tiny little suitcase, and I've discarded all of these things which I think that I need. And I've been briefed that Bangladesh is a difficult place and you want a couple of little comforts. So I rocked up and I was there first, and I was stressed about how much my carry-on weighed, because you're meant to only have about 7 kilos in that thing, and I weighed it and it was about 11. So straight off the bat, I'm like, if I get pulled up on this, I am going to lose half my luggage, but I was like, at least everyone else is in the same boat. Sifkas comes in. Huge carry-on luggage, but straps around it trying to hold the thing together. I'm like, well, this is unusual. He's completely ignored JB's advice. I'm like, did JB tell you to only bring the carry-on? He's like, oh yeah, but no, we can't do that. You can't fit everything in you need. Dan Beasy walks in, huge carry-on, straps holding the thing together. I'm like, oh, sorry, not carry-on, checked luggage. And I'm like, did JB have the same conversation with you? He's like, oh, you can't listen to JB. He's got a full wardrobe over there in Bangladesh already. So all he has is this little carry-on with a couple bits of medicine and a few little bits and pieces in there. His wardrobe's over there. You've got to spring more. So I was sweating through every checkpoint going, please don't weigh it, please don't weigh it, please don't weigh it. So I was frustrated. Point number one. The second bit was that Corey had a virus probably the day or two before, and so I was avoiding her, trying to make sure I didn't get sick for the start of the trip, because I was pretty sure it was guaranteed that I was going to get sick at some point along the trip. So I thought I'd made it. I was on the plane, all of a sudden, sweating, not feeling well, feeling nauseous. I reached for my gastro kit that, thank God, I went and purchased that before we went. And all of a sudden in Kuala Lumpur airport, I'm in the sick bay. This is me. And we legitimately thought that I was going to have to stay there for days because I was in a really bad way. And if anyone knows my migraine situation, I usually end up in hospital when they get this bad. I had some people praying for me though, and JB will attest that within probably 2 hours, and without us seriously going, I'm going to have to stay here. There's just no way I can fly. I was up and about and walking around and had the most miraculous recovery from that. So thank you to everybody that prayed for me. And this is before I'd even made it to Bangladesh. So I was going, I am not going to go well here. But anyway, made it 4 hours KL up to Dhaka in Bangladesh. And I was bracing myself for the worst. JB has talked, and you might recall, it's dangerous, it's awful, it's really difficult. I do serious ministry when I'm over there, Derek. It's really hard and tough. It's not a holiday at all. And then as I showed last week, first thing he does on the first day, takes us out for a nice coffee. It's a Gloria Jeans. I'm going, well, this isn't so bad. And it seemed to be a little bit of a common trait through the trip. I'm not going to show all these photos, JB, but then he took us to Krispy Kreme. Oh, it's Krispy Kreme over there. And then he's out having cups of tea all over the place, everywhere we go. I'd like a cup of tea. I'd like a cup of tea and a biscuit. Really tough. There we are at the cricket, just relaxing. Again, another cup of coffee. So I'm starting at this point to think, is this ministry? What have I been doing all this time? But Dhaka itself, I had my first probably taste of this in the first day that we were there. We did go and get a coffee just to recover a bit from the flight. But Dhaka is on the list of most unlivable cities in the world. It is number 2. So you've got Damascus in Syria, which is a complete war zone and disaster. And then there's Dhaka. So it is, despite my pictures of JB relaxing and enjoying himself, it's a tough place, and it's a tough place to live. So I just want to give you a very quick snapshot without trying to, glorify or over-exaggerate things in any way, but this is just life as I kind of saw it. To be perfectly honest, I found it quite difficult. This is the first day there to take some pictures, so I didn't take pictures of things that were quite difficult to see because it was just a bit too confronting and I felt a bit awkward about it. But also you do want to be able to come back and share some reality as well around how others are living. So this is us in Dhaka. It's a slum along the side of the train tracks. I understand it's improved significantly from previous times. And just on the bottom left there's an area which I'll just highlight. It's just rubbish, but yet people are living right next to that. And you'll see the young child just in the middle there, just on the right of JB. So just washing dishes right next to the rubbish amidst the filth of that place. I found it quite difficult to be there, to be perfectly honest. It was confronting, and when you see how far that goes down, and that the people have to spill their lives out onto those train tracks and try and run off of them and move all the things as the trains come through. It's just difficult to see and just difficult for me to comprehend that sort of life. So people are, as well, in Dhaka just trying to find a way to survive. There's markets, there's still vibrancy and energy all through the place. There was so much to see and be interested in virtually everywhere you turned. It's obviously extraordinarily densely populated. It's I think it's in the top 10 for density of population in the world. There's things happening everywhere you go. I went to a fish market. They tried to take me to a lamb market. I made it about 1 metre in. I turned around and walked out. I did not want to be in there. The infrastructure is not quite up to, as an engineer, I was saying, well, that's probably not quite meeting the standards that you would expect. So that was interesting. And there was just sights to see. Like everywhere you turned, there were sights. There was gas canisters and goats and chickens and everything around the place. One of the things that was interesting was that just people everywhere there's a piece of land, everywhere there's an opportunity. There's someone trying to survive, trying to carve out an existence with just some vegetables or whatever it is they're trying to sell. This is a super hard thing to witness without sort of casting too much judgment on it. We're walking past a construction site and there was a whole bunch of women only who were just, you can see the hammers that they've got there. They were just squatting down, chiseling away at the foundation of this building, and I'm assuming they're just trying to level it out. But I watched them for a few minutes. And that's just what they were doing, just chiseling away and then brushing and chiseling away. And so you're seeing these people just trying to make a living, trying to survive. This is on the way to the cricket, where we did go and watch a cricket game, which was wonderful. But the sights and things that you see as you're cruising along, this is sort of a very common sight as you've got sort of dogs and animals in the mix, you've got rubbish, you've got people living or operating out of sort of tin shed shanties along the side there. Sort of a very common kind of sight in Bangladesh, particularly as you get out of the city just a fraction. There's lots of this sort of stuff. So I don't know, that's just a little bit of a flavour of Dhaka itself. It's highly polluted. Its infrastructure is lacking. Traffic jams, you can be stuck in there for 3 hours to try and go about 10 kilometres. There's not a road rule in sight, aside from whoever's biggest wins. That's about the main road rule I managed to discern. So that was probably day one, and there was a lot to see. Yeah, a lot to see and a lot to take in. We then flew up to a place called Saipur. JB continually reflects on how wonderful it is to be able to fly and not to have to drive. And it was wonderful. We just flew up there without incident. It was fantastic. Is Alvin there? We got to spend so much time with him. And I will reiterate JB's comments, if I forget to do it later on in here, that he is just flying, and he is really taking on the ministry in an incredible way. So I'm very proud of him and thrilled to see what God's going to do in and through him. Went through a place called Dinajapur, which was a little bit more rural, and then up to a place called Nepali, where Sifkus and Jamie and the Campbells have donated a facility up there. So as you get further out, it becomes more and more rural and what I would call subsistence type living, where it is just collecting hay. This man here, I know it's a bit blurry, but he was just breaking bricks by hand, crushing them, well, not with a little hammer. And he had an enormous pile of bricks sitting next to him, and that's what he was doing in order to survive himself. This lady we saw a little bit later on in the trip, but I just put the photo here now. She's got a little blade that she's cutting that grass with and filling up that bag to be able to take it to go and feed her goat. And there's just all of this out in those really remote villages. It is just subsistence, absolute manpower only, just using your hands to do whatever you can to try and survive. This is clearly this was an interesting thing because everyone wanted a photo. This is goat dung that they squash onto those sticks and then dry it so that they can then cook, heat with that. So they'll use that as heat if they don't have access to wood. So seeing all this is very common throughout all of the rural villages there. So the first centre that we're able to visit, and I'm not going to try and sugarcoat any of this, and I apologise, I'm just going to rush through this quite quickly to get to some of the other things that will make a little bit more context. But this is one of the centres that Brenton, Jamie, Kim Campbell and Sifkus donated. So we'll see the foundation stone there, laid by Senior Pastor, Enfield Baptist Church, all of Adelaide. So JB got a promotion there straight off the bat. But it was wonderful to be able to go and see this facility that the boys and Kim had a passion to see get built. Now, there's not a compassion program operating out of this facility yet, even though it's been around for a while. Compassion have committed to a program there, but there's been some issues with the way they operate with the government, which I won't go into now, which they're working through to resolve. So there's a real challenge for Alvin in Gospel for Bangladesh. How do they, without compassion there, to really give it some oomph, how do they actually activate these community centres? How do they strengthen the churches that are attached to them such that there's actual meaningful community development occurring, that the churches are able to engage with the community, and that we're able to see these centres used really well? Without explaining it, I think it's a real opportunity to not have compassion in there straight away, because it's really forcing Alvin, JB, some of the leaders of this to wrestle through how do we engage well with the community and not just rely on an international organisation to come in and run programs. It's going to set it up, I think, really well for the future once those programs are up and running. But there is the facility. They have managed to, even without compassion, fund some teachers to come in and to be able to start teaching the kids. So there's a few groups of children in there. There's a couple of wonderful moments here as JB remembered baptising the lady that you see right on the right-hand side there a couple of trips back. And she, as she's been baptised, is now serving in that place and is actually teaching the kids. So real grassroots kind of ministry, which is just wonderful to see, even though Compassion International is not yet running the big sort of glamorous program in there yet. We moved on from there. We actually went and visited another facility, which I won't go through. We did have a wonderful meal. The curries in Bangladesh are unbelievable. So we had a meal at another centre that was in a little bit of the same boat as the other one, although it had some other things up and running. On the way back to where we were staying that night, we had some tea on the side of the road. That's where it was extraordinarily interesting to just be around the markets and the people, and that's where JB was having a wonderful time. I don't know what you're laughing at there, but geez, it must have been funny. And then we went to basically a convent where they were teaching, where some nuns were using it as a training facility. So that was our convent. That is actually Alvin. You can't quite see him. He's sleeping on one of those beds. They weren't the most comfortable things I've ever slept on. This is Dan inside his mosquito net preparing for the message that he's about to deliver the next day at the opening of the new facility. This is Dan when the power went out. He's trying to prepare for his message, still in the mosquito net. I love the juxtaposition of this. Cooking in stone ovens. This is for our meal that was also incredible, and the nun's on her phone. So you kind of got the really rural, and that was also an amazing curry, and I'll probably repeat that several times for the rest of the slideshow. This is the one that we were there for myself and Sifkus, and obviously Corey as well, donating some money to a new centre. So we're able to go out there and open a new centre up in Mahapur. We stopped for some tea along the way. I was super happy with this photo when I took it. I was like, oh, that guy looks great. But then I just noticed that Dan's put his head in there and he's got his phone taking a photo of that little cup of tea, the tea boiling there. So it completely ruined it. But anyway, we stopped for tea everywhere. It was a requirement of JB. But this is the new centre that we've been able to do. And I know that actually the Beesies did contribute to this as well as Corey and I and Sifkus. So this was Alvin's first one as well that he's actually taken on and built and delivered without his dad being around. So the community was a hive of activity that day. Everyone was really excited to be there. There was a number of local dignitaries that came along. So it was wonderful. There's so many photos taken. It was unbelievable. It's the headstone. You lost your promotion there. You're just the senior pastor of Enfield on that one. But we had the whole community really come out and to sort of celebrate the opening of this facility. Beautiful kids, without too much to hope for. As I described, it is really a subsistence living out where they are, just farming. The kids are working in the paddocks virtually straight away. You don't start working at 15. I just should be working based on what they're doing over there. But the whole community was able to be out there. It was a really special time. Dan even was able to preach. He shared a really simple gospel message that in a place like Bangladesh, where the majority people are Muslim, there's around 1% that are Christian. It's not kind of as easy as standing up here and preaching and sharing that Jesus is the way. There has been, at times, bits of danger associated with that. So it was a real privilege, and we were trusting in God a little bit as he just literally said, Jesus is the answer. Jesus is the way. Jesus is God. To all of the dignitaries that were there, as well as all of the community. So we're extremely hopeful that with this facility, the church will be strengthened, but also all of those kids that you see there are going to have hope and opportunity come as a result of that. One of the challenges, I suppose, again with this one, is that there's not going to be a compassion centre in there for a little while until they're able to sort out some of the issues with the government. So again, they've got the same challenge. How do we activate this facility? How do we actually connect and engage with the community in a meaningful way? How does the church connect with the community here? Acknowledging that I'm almost out of time, I just want to talk through the mission land quickly. One of the challenges as we visited all these facilities is recognising that leadership is just essential. They need good leaders, they need good teachers, they need good pastors to be able to engage with the communities. This land has been donated, so Gospel for Bangladesh has this land. They are praying for a miracle that some money will be made available somehow to build a training facility that they can actually take and train their pastors and train leaders in the country. So we were able to pray over that land. We met the pastor of the church just behind it that's been built on the land as they try and faithfully look after that area. One of the most encouraging bits, I want to spend a tiny bit of time, and you're just going to have to forgive me because it's going to be a little bit more than an hour of power. Another meal. But this centre was up and running really well. It was buzzing. It was alive with activity. It's been around for a little while. So Compassion are operating in there. The church is up and running and engaged and growing. I understand there's 60 or 70 people attending that. The beautiful kids are all having a meal through the Compassion program, which was just wonderful. And this is the other interesting bit around it. So Compassion operate, the church is operating, but here LifeWell is also operating. And I had my doubts around how LifeWell integrated, and the truth is that it is quite a complicated way that it's all working. But the heart and the ethos of what LifeWell is all about, integrated care, holistic care for people, is something that is actually using as a not-for-profit to engage and activate, or to engage with the community and activate these community centres. So this moment, I consider it was up there with one of the most special times on the trip. So in the back you can see 2 sewing machines, which I believe Barb Chapman and Cheryl Hollingworth small group, Bev, donated. So we were able to sit and listen to these ladies as they talked about the difference that those sewing machines had made for them in their community. Now they're manually operated, but that's exactly what they need where they are. And the lady on the left is a teacher, which Alvin is, through their ministry, Gospel for Bangladesh, is paying for. So she works 1 day a week. And we sat with the ladies and they would say, it's amazing. We now are able to, when our clothes break, we're able to fix them. We usually can't afford to go and buy new clothes. So we just have to make do, and we were making do the best we could. So now we can fix our clothes. So thank you to that group. They're able to fix their clothes. Yeah, round of applause. They are able to make new clothes. They're able to buy materials really cheap and make their own. But as we were talking as well, we asked, well, what more do you need? Do you need any more, or is what you have enough? And that was some of the women that are attending this group. They have 5 minutes per week on the machine with a teacher there because they can only afford to pay the teacher for 1 day per week. So they said they're rushing when they get their 5 minutes, and they make mistakes because they don't have enough time with the teacher there on the machine. So sitting there listening to that was amazing. It was humbling, and it was also very challenging around the basic need that there was and the simple need that could so potentially easily be met. So a couple of bits of good news out of that was that whilst we were there, I had some family, some of Corey's family saw a couple of photos and said, how can we help? And they have donated probably 1 or 2 more sewing machines that can then go in, so more can be on the machine while the teacher's there. I know Ross Trevor had a couple more machines that were donated as well. But one of the challenges is operational cost. How does Alvin and the Gospel for Bangladesh actually fund that lady to be able to actually be there more than 1 day a week? Because they don't have operational money flowing in from these churches. If you can imagine, the church is struggling in and of itself, even with 60 or 70 people, just to sustain itself. And if talking to JB, talking to Alvin, the pastors are often paid $1 a week, which is just absolutely nothing, and they can't actually survive on that, from Alvin's ministry to just get them in there and get going and have something operate. So I asked Alvin last night, how much does it cost to have that teacher there for 1 day a week? And without playing the games and making you guess, since we're out of time, it was $2.50 for a day. And so doing some maths around school and school terms and all of that stuff, I was like, probably $500-600 would fund her for a year full time. Alvin's got a dream. I mentioned the other 2 centres that don't yet have compassion projects in them as well. How do they engage and operate? He would love to be able to have her go to those other centres as well, 1 or 2 days a week, or employ someone else if there's enough money to actually operate programs like that, which the community are desperately wanting. So this was it was amazing to sit there with them. It was a real privilege. Another bit that I wanted to highlight is that this chap is a doctor. So Alvin is funding him 2 days a week to be at this community centre, which anyone from the community can come and access. The church, the struggling little church there of 60, is paying for all of the medicine that you see there, such that the community who have no money, can actually access a service of some form, some kind of healthcare, some kind of service. So this is the work of Lifewell. This is actually Lifewell operating within this community centre, doing community development, engagement, empowering people, doing some healthcare, and there's numerous other bits and pieces that we'd love to see get going there. The sky's the limit. It's just around resources and sustainability, and how Alvin, with all that he is trying to do, can try and make some of that stuff happen. So really powerful time to share in that, and it gave me such a great picture, such a great vision of what all of the centres could be. There's a number that are up and running and thriving like that, and we've got a few more that are in their infancy, which need a kick along, and Alvin's working furiously on that. And again, taking liberties with time, just a final thing that I want to talk through. We spent some time up in Birasiri, which is Ashish's hometown, where some of the ministry started. And I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the work of the Beasy family. So the road is very dangerous heading up there, which we've heard JB talk about. I won't labour that though. This is what is called the Tin Shed Church. Now I know that many years ago, over 30 years ago, Ashish came and visited Australia, and he didn't want to go to Mildura. I believe he later confessed, because it was middle of nowhere, no point going there. But Ethel Beasy was there when he came and shared, which is John's grandma. And she felt moved to just contribute to the work that Ashish was doing in Bangladesh. And this is the fruit of her first contribution. Then from that came the Ethel Beasy Memorial Centre, which is like a community centre that we are still building now. John was able to obviously stand there and reflect on, in 1989, he was actually there to lay that foundation stone. John Beasy. The work of that has continued in that whole centre. These kids are currently being cared for such that they can go to school and be cared for with some food and some supplies. It's a complicated little ministry that's going on there, and Alvin hasn't necessarily been involved in this. But even John now, 30 years on, was able to pray with the man who's been part of that ministry and share in a special moment, just praying for him and praying that God will bless him and all that he's doing there. So there was a really, like, the significance of the Beasy ministry over in Bangladesh shone through, and you see that 30-year history. And then JB's been 20 odd times to Bangladesh, continuing to be faithful to serve God in that. There's not much glamour, there's not much glory in it, so I want to sort of acknowledge that, JB, that you've been an incredibly faithful servant. And you also see your son there as well, continuing and now preaching and sharing the gospel there too. You're able to, as well, form an incredible relationship with Ashish. We had a special time of going to his home, of being at his grave, and we actually shared a wonderful memorial time where we reflected on just how incredible his faith was, his perseverance, his diligence was, and the example that is to all of us. So one of the things out of that is that a little seed sown by Ethel Beasy 30 odd years ago has seen thousands of people impacted in Bangladesh in ways that she would never have imagined. And as I wrap up a little bit this morning, I had a couple of verses that were just bubbling around in my head while I was seeing all of this. Firstly, as the primary work of Alvin and the Gospel for Bangladesh is seeing people come to know him. It's a majority Muslim country. There is so much opportunity, and they are doing the hard yards to try and connect and engage. So go and make disciples of all the nations, like fulfilling that commission. And the encouragement is that as a church, we're also participating in that as we support JB, Alvin, the work of Gospel for Bangladesh as they're over there. And it's not easy over there, and so there's additional encouragement, and for JB and people that are going to head back over there again, God is with us as we go into dangerous, uncomfortable, difficult places. He is with us as we are honouring the Great Commission there. He also challenges us to give to the poor. There is poverty, there is need, there is hurt, there is brokenness in Bangladesh. So therefore there is opportunity for us to be obedient to God and give. An additional encouragement, and I think what we've seen in Ethel's giving and the way that JB and Bowl legacy has gone on is that he is able to do immeasurably more than we could ever ask or imagine. The little seeds of a sewing machine donated by a home group is changing people's lives. Like, it's amazing. They're therefore connected with a community. There's a church attached to that. Who knows what God's going to do in that space? We're able to talk with one young man who wanted to be a kids worker. So he was connected and engaged with the church in some way and wanted to go on and be a pastor, even though they get paid nothing. It's not a good career move. So God is able to do incredible things with what little we give. And finally, it's pretty easy for me, I suppose, to be like, oh, give big chunks of money. Corey and I were super lucky. We were saving for a house deposit. What do? We just delay buying a house a little bit and are able to give a chunk of money. Not everyone's in that same boat, and you don't even have to be. That is not the point. And I was reflecting on that as I was thinking about how to encourage us here. When Jesus was at the temple, he watched people putting in their offering, and some people did give big bags of money. And the widow who gave only the 2 cents, he said she's actually given more. And the encouragement is for you today, in whatever way you are giving, well, I hope you are. Firstly, I hope you are giving something to something, whether it's the life of this church, whether it's the ministries that are going on around us in this community, whether it's overseas mission, compassion projects, whatever it might be. I trust that you are being faithful to the call to give in some way, even if it's small, even if you feel embarrassed by what little you have, because God is able to do immeasurably more than we could ever hope or ask. She has put more in than all of the others, even just with her few cents. So the encouragement today is simply this: give, be faithful to the call of God on your life, to give in some way to something, and to not neglect the poor or the needy or those that need someone to speak up for them because of the injustice that they're suffering. It doesn't matter whether it's a lot or a little. God's looking at your heart, and he can do so much with what you give. I mentioned it's $2.50 a day for the teacher, the sewing teacher. The doctor was $3.50 a day that they're paying him to be able to come, and he's willing to, for that amount. Now, he's taking a hit on that, don't get me wrong, but he's willing to come in for $3.50 a day and serve that community, as long as the church is providing some of the other resources there. A school teacher was around the $3.50 to $4 a day as well. So there's compassion centres over there, or community centres that need activation and support. Ongoing, just faithful little bits of giving from this community or other communities, whoever God's going to touch, will do an incredible work over there. Really pray for Alvin and the ministry over there. He is doing so well. We had a moment where at the opening of our facility, all of the dignitaries that spoke, they just bored the tears out of everyone, to be perfectly honest. And Alvin got up and the place came alive. He was able to communicate and engage with the kids and even with the adults in the community there. That was just impressive, and really gave confidence that he's leading the ministry forward, and he's got a rapport with these communities that's going to serve well. So I'm going to leave it there, and I don't want people to feel guilted. All right, it's not about that at all. It's just an opportunity to reflect on how easy it might be for you, and even if you've got a little, can you make something happen with that? Because God will bless that, I assure you. The very last bit is that Alvin's shooting a newsletter out. I don't have it here. JB's got a few newsletters at the back. So Alvin's trying to keep people updated with what he's doing as he wrestles through the complexity of the ministry. There's BSB and account details on the back of that. It's the Australian giving one, which is right up the top. So if you want to, chat to JB, just grab a newsletter. You'll be able to give in some way if you want to, and if God is leading you in that way. There's so much that can be done. And if you don't want to do that and you want to just consider how you can be responsible to what God has given you, by all means, do that as well. Let me pray. God, we are so just grateful for all that you've given us, firstly. We're so grateful for what we have in this country. But we also recognise there's incredible need here. There's incredible hurt and brokenness as well. And so help us to be people that are faithful to your call on our lives, no matter what area it is that we are called to give into or to serve in. So help us to do that in our context, God. May your Spirit, I pray, speak into the hearts of all of us, that we might be faithful, that we might sacrifice a little wherever we're at in order to see your kingdom grow, in order to see the poor served in some way. I pray for Alvin and the work that he is doing in Bangladesh. I thank you for the way you have been leading that whole thing through. I pray for its growth. I pray for its flourishing. I pray that miracles happen to see the vision of Bangladesh changed by the gospel. So we just pray for that, God, in your precious name. Amen.